see. I got a special guest who actually came down to Houston the day after Thanksgiving and came and visited some of the record shops down in Houston, and welcome Michael. So to kick things off, I'm curious, what did you think of the two record stores we hit? What do you think of the Houston scene? And I'd like to get your honest take. So my personal take is Houston is not a record haven. It is not a West Coast California amoeba type store. There's nothing like that here. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree. From the two stores I went to, this is my first time going record shopping in Houston. I'd been to Houston before, but I never looked for vinyl there. And I did find some cool used stuff in the second store, the vinyl store. But how's that spelled again? Vinal?
Yeah.
But Cactus music reminded me a lot of Waterloo. Maybe a smaller selection than Waterloo. It was mostly centered around new records. I found a lot of interesting rock and metal there, and of course they had a big bin of the leftover RSD stuff that was fun to go through. But I was kind of disappointed in that. A lot of times when I go to big urban record stores, I'm really looking for the kind of what we call wall records. That kind of rare older pressings, stuff like that are a pain to hunt for online and that you really want to go and try to find in person. And I was a little disappointed that I didn't find anything like that, especially in Cactus, just because it's such a big store. But I was really impressed by their metal section. I was pretty impressed by their classical section, which was nice. So they did have a lot of interesting stuff. Just it wasn't what I was expecting to find.
Yeah, I gotta say, so my thoughts on going to Cactus, because this was my first time in a record store in over 2 years. Cactus and their wall records, typically they're a lot better. They normally feature a lot of good wall records, but this time I have to agree, I was not really impressed with what they had. The record store day stuff really surprised me. So, I haven't done record store day in a couple of years. We went the day after Thanksgiving. I was not.
No, I think we were there the day after Thanksgiving. So the day after Black Friday.
So 2 days afterwards. So I really wasn't expecting to find a whole lot. But I was really surprised with what they had. And, they had a lot of good stuff from record store days past. And I ended up picking up several copies of things that I never expected to find. And in fact, one of the records we're going to be talking about here was the one thing that I did want from this particular record store day, but I had I went in with no hopes of actually finding it. So what were your thoughts on the Vinal Edge?
That was a cooler store. It was a little crowded, but so I didn't get to pick through kind of as much as I probably would want to if the store was a little more dead. But I was impressed. They had like a new wave goth section that was really interesting to pick through. Their classical section, I found a bunch of cool stuff in the classical section, like this stereophile direct to disc LP. The kind of stuff that you wouldn't expect to find in a normal record store. They had some of that. Actually, I think the classical stuff was some of my best pickups from that store. I also got I don't have it here, but I got the original reference recording pressing of the Nojima Plays List album, which is kind of like an audiophile favorite, and a lot of people really hunt for that older pressing, and it's like, I think if I were to go on Discogs, it would be like $50, and I found it there for $15, so that was pretty nice.
Yeah, I wanted to record more footage in that store, but because it was so crowded, and I hate, filming people that, I personally don't like being on somebody else's camera. So I hate having moving my camera around and people know I'm shooting video and just making them feel uncomfortable. So I did shoot some stuff on my iPhone, but that's about as best as I could do with the Vinal Edge. But I do like the Vinal Edge because of its eclectic selection. Record store day, they really didn't have a whole lot there at all. So I don't know what the participation was like the day of, but yeah.
Yeah, they were more of a used store, which was nice.
Yeah, and they always have been. But really, those are two of the gems. The landscape in Houston has changed, but yeah, Houston is not really the best city for record shopping.
So what's the best city you've ever been to for record shopping?
Well, I would have to say California for sure. You go to Los Angeles and, you got the plethora of stores. And then, I've been lucky because I've been in Japan. So, and Japan is a little bit of a haven too. So how about you?
I'm trying to think because Austin, some of these very popular cities, even though there's a lot of records there and there's a lot of good record stores, they get picked through because vinyl's so popular now. So sometimes when I go to Los Angeles, it can be hit or miss. Sometimes I'll have some really good finds. Sometimes I won't. I remember one of the first times I went to San Francisco, maybe almost 10 years ago now, I did find some really good stuff, but it was very expensive. And I guess New York was probably the best place I've ever been for classical. I will say that. Some of the classical I would find in New York City, I just have never found anywhere else. For rock, it's totally picked through, though.
Yeah. Yeah, the nice thing about classical, too, is that, a lot of people just totally pass it over. And, I ended up picking up some stuff based on your recommendation at Cactus. And, I did have a little bit of playtime yesterday. And, the recordings were flawless. The vinyl didn't even look like it was played. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, that was you got a Schulte box set, didn't you?
Yeah, I got his performance of Beethoven's Mass in C minor and Mrs.
Yeah, and didn't you there was also Sprach there, wasn't there?
Yep. Grab that one too.
With Zubin.
And that was the one that you recommended. You said, "Hey, this is demo material," and absolutely.
Yeah, I have that one. That's all the Zubin Mehta Los Angeles stuff was just recorded so well by Decca.
All right. Shall we talk about the two records that we picked up in common?
Yeah. Which one do you want to do first?
Well, let's start with this guy.
Ah, okay. So you're probably more of a Hendrix fan than I am, right? I mean, I like Jimi Hendrix, but something tells me you're big into his catalog.
I've been big into Hendrix, but I'm not an uber fan. I mean, I will not go out and buy every single release, but I do have a fair amount. I love Jimi Hendrix, but he's probably not my most favorite. And I know some people are probably wanting to throw something at me right now, but this is the one that I had to have because I thought I had heard this recording, and I told you that going in that this is a really well recorded show. But what I had heard actually came from this. Which is from the Jimi Hendrix, Stages box set. Now, I gotta say, I re-listened to this, and I listened to this, and I actually preferred this set over his 68 set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a while since I listened to a lot of live Hendrix. I think I have the Live in Miami album and then the Live at Monterey album, and those are of course great. But it's been a while. I mostly gravitate towards a studio album and then the Smash Hits album that just got reissued not too long ago. I listened to this, and one thing I noticed is that, well, first of all, they clearly didn't. I don't think they pulled the recording just from the boards. There's some room sound in this recording. Yeah, so this was recorded at the Olympia Theater, which I have a few recordings from the Olympia. I think it was just the setup they used, but yeah, the theater, at least the sound that came across, is very boomy. And I remember, I think you texted me and you said, hey, they probably used the Smiley Curve EQ on this because of the bass, and then kind of the higher frequencies were a little more pronounced. I don't know if I would call it Smiley. I noticed, especially at the end of side one, when I was listening to it, it's the bass guitar, it's like overpowering the drums, and that's not something I was really expecting to hear. Yeah. It's better on side two, but for the most part, I wish the drums, especially the lower drums, were more well recorded, because the guitar is recorded really well. The guitar tone comes through fantastically. But what I get when I listen to this is, it reminds me of, especially, like before I get the chance to put my earplugs in, when I go to a rock club, and I hear like the sound of the just a huge Marshall stack in that like kind of empty room.
Yes.
That's what this sound reminded me of. It's a very like distant perspective live sound.
Yeah.
But it conveys it well, I think.
Yeah. So I will have to agree. The sound is not perfect by any means on this record. In fact,
but I don't think it's bad.
No. Yeah, I honestly, I would say for me, just in terms of the playing of the three band members together, this is a must-have concert if you're a Hendrix fan. I actually preferred it much more to the 68 set, and I thought, I don't know, I haven't looked where they're playing for this one, but actually, this one will probably see the light of day in a future record store day, of course. This was never officially released on vinyl as far as I'm aware. The Stages box set had 4 different shows going from 67, 68, 69, and then 70. But the recording on this one is far less than this guy here. So, yeah, I if they do release the 68 set, I would pass on it. I mean, if you're not a big Hendrix fan. But yeah, this one I do recommend. I like the interplay with the audience too, because, he's trying to get them to say stuff in English, but it's like dead silent. So it's kind of humorous. I would say in terms of the audio too, there were some places where it felt like it was clipped. And, there are places where there's feedback from the amplifiers. Yeah. But that just kind of adds to the ambiance of this.
Yeah, it's like the Who live at Leeds.
Yep.
It adds to it.
Yeah.
I will note that I enjoyed side 2 a lot more than side 1.
Yeah.
I think in side 2 the band really got like a little looser and they really like hit their stride. It's like it's almost like when you start off running, it's just like that first mile sucks and then after that it's fun.
Exactly.
Because I will say, this is probably the best version of Purple Haze I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
The intro, his opening riff is just, there's so much power and energy in it. And it just feels so much more focused than other versions I've heard.
Yeah, they were very inspired, I would say, towards the second half for sure. So you definitely feel it on side 2. Now, this was not the first release of this. So, you pointed out to me the day we bought it, hey, mastered by George Marino. And sure enough, there was a box set which featured this. And so I looked at the dead wax when I cleaned it yesterday, and it has Ryan K. Smith. So it makes me wonder if Ryan K. Smith was working from a tape transfer or a digital transfer from George Marino.
Maybe, so, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like for a recording like this, I don't know if I would quibble that much about AAA or not.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, it's not an audiophile recording. I also found it interesting because I looked online because this was released in Europe as well. And the European cut was done by Krieger at SST. So I'm curious, I'm sure there's some super Hendrix fan that got both the European and the American copies, but
I would imagine if the other one was cut SST, that would be a significant difference.
Yeah. I honestly prefer Ryan K. Smith over Krieger's work anyway. Yeah. All right. Any more on the Hendrix? I was surprised that there was like 20 copies there.
Yeah, they must have got a big allotment.
Yeah, because I went in thinking, there's no way in hell I was going to get it. But yeah, I was surprised with how many copies. Now, the one I got to ask you about is this one here.
Yes, Sun Ra. What's funny is I discovered Sun Ra probably my first year of undergrad is when I first discovered Sun Ra, and I just downloaded everything I could. I think I at least attempted to listen to a large chunk of his discography and never got through it. And then I just kind of shelved it. and I didn't really come back to him. And that was when I started to get into, because I was kind of just not that familiar with jazz at all. But I remember towards the end of high school and like in early undergrad, I was really I was just trying to discover all this experimental music. And so I was listening to like, you know, experimental classical music and minimalism and, you know, Viennese school stuff and out there jazz. I was listening to Bitches Brew and this and things like that, just because it was just new. And it was something that was so outside the paradigm of what I had learned thus far in music that I just wanted to kind of, you know, try everything I could. I think I liked it more back then than I do now. I think in retrospect, especially side one of this, I just didn't enjoy the big long spaces the place track. I will say I enjoyed side two a lot more, and I think it's because the band was able to mix kind of familiar jazz structures and then branch out and do some wacky stuff.
Yes, that's a very good way of describing side two.
Because I think experimental music can be a lot more interesting if there's rules there to be broken.
Yeah.
When it's just kind of existing as its own thing, it becomes less interesting. Does that make sense? No,
that makes sense. It's so for me this is very interesting. You know, when I saw this at the Vinal Edge, because we both picked it up at the Vinal Edge, I read the hype sticker, and damn the hype sticker. So if you read the hype sticker, the BBC says, "Oh, it's Sun Ra's most accessible outing."
No, it's not.
Bullshit.
Well, he did traditional jazz records.
Yeah.
Like there's records of him playing hard bop, which is what I like that, because it's like I don't know how much you're into art, but it's like if you look at like paintings that like Jackson Pollock or like Mark Rothko did in their youth, you know, they can paint like traditional style paintings.
So, you know, anyone that's watching us, the accessible Sun Ra, I recommend this one by Modern Harmonic, because it's all, you know, bop, hard bop, a little bit of exotica. It's, you know, it's all very structured. This guy is, for the most part, it's free jazz and avant-garde. And, you know, I've tried as hard as I can, and I cannot make free jazz click in my mind. Now, the first track, which takes up all side one, Space is the Place, it does have some underlying structure to it. And I think it's very fascinating what Sun Ra's doing with the Moog, because he has a Moog synth that he's playing, and he's making these space-like tunes. And then you got June Taylor, who is the predominant vocalist that, you know, I always liked her vocals. But then you got like John Gilmore, who was his long-term saxophonist, and he had several other saxophonists on this record that, you know, they go way off on the freer side. And it was interesting because on side two, Images starts out like a big band track.
Yeah.
So that one was kind of interesting because it starts out as a traditional big band, but it gets a little more on the experimental side, which I was okay with. And then you get to, this is kind of a strange cover, to Sea of Sounds. And that is just wonky tenor saxophone to the core. And I'm like, I can listen to it once. I don't know if I'd ever put it on repeat though.
You know, there was one busker I used to run into on the New York City subway a couple times that would do that kind of like free jazz soloing, and I think he was like just copying Sun Ra. He would dress up in the costume and everything. Yeah. He would just come on the train and just play those licks, and I don't remember, like 2 a.m. It was great. Well, the funny thing is you know, I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure he was trying to shoot a documentary at the time for this. But I'm not sure. I've seen bits and pieces
of it.
There's a lot of
And
film footage out of his
this
band
costume,
out there.
but I don't know if the documentary ever came to fruition, but I'm sure some Sun Ra guy will probably tell me, hey, no, it can't. So I'm not the hugest Sun Ra fan, but this was interesting. Now, this is done by Jackpot, and this was your first Jackpot pickup. What did you think of the
I thought it sounded fine. Because I've heard a couple. I have like 2 original Sun Ra pressings, and it's not really that much different from what I remember from the original press sound, which is, these were not big budget recordings.
No.
So I think they did a good job. I have no idea. I'm sure it's digitally sourced, probably high res is my guess. But I thought the mastering was fine. It didn't have like the obvious like CD cut mastering.
Yeah.
That I sometimes I'll hear in some of the more gray market releases.
So with this one, I looked at the dead wax, and the dead wax had rainbow numbers, and it also had RTI. This came out in 2020, so rainbow died, I think, in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
So I suspect it's coming from rainbow plates because it was initially released in 2015. And so they probably used the plates from the Rainbow record that was released in 2015. And then I noticed that it had a kind of a cloudy inner sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And so RTI uses those cloudy, transparent inner sleeves. So I'm pretty sure that this is probably an RTI press. And, for me, it's not audiophile for sure, but my pressing was quiet.
Yeah, mine was too.
And pop. So, and then it was mastered, or the lacquer was cut by Adam Gonzalez in Portland.
Yeah, I remember looking that up, and I don't know who that person is.
Yeah, he's not a bad mastering engineer. I think the dead wax says Goyosa. Yeah, which is kind of a moniker he goes by. But yeah, no. For me, this I was pissed because of the hype sticker. But I did like the Stoughton jacket. This is the first time I've
it's a nice jacket.
Yeah, this was nice because it did have a nice jacket. They tried to replicate the blue thumb as best as they could. The one thing that I do not like about Jackpot is they're not really faithful to the original label. They put their own stamp on things, but I'm okay if it's a MoFi and MoFi does that, but if you're trying to do a reissue, I prefer you be faithful to the label.
Yeah. The hype sticker, I don't get why people call this his most accessible release, but it's definitely, I think it's one of the more highly recommended ones, because Sun Ra's discography is so daunting. Oh, yeah. And this is definitely I think if you go to AllMusic, this is one of the more highly rated releases from him. Yeah. So it's if you're into the experimental side of Sun Ra, this is probably where you would at least start to build a collection. Yeah.
And I would say if you're into free jazz, this would be worth checking out. But yeah, for me, it was, if I had known, and I should have known better, because in the 70s, for the most part, he was very free and avant-garde and experimental. So, but yeah, I read the damn hype sticker and I bought into the hype.
I think it's a good next step if you really like the stuff that Ornette Coleman was doing after Shape of Jazz to Come. If you're this is our music and free jazz. I think Sun Ra, album is a very good next step.
Yep, absolutely. So, Michael, I got to tell you, thank you for this one.
I thought you would like it.
No, this was fun. I got to spin it once yesterday. So yesterday I had a nice long cleaning session, and I played all 3 of these albums back to back to back. And this was nice. I enjoyed it, and it was actually, I didn't look at where Herbie Hancock was chronologically, but it's almost like his how he fed into Rocket, because I could tell he was using a little bit of a vocoder on this one. So yeah, if you're a fan of I would say early 80s Herbie Hancock. Yeah, this is one to pick up. This is a great funk record, and I don't really have any Japanese funk at all. And this
the band was all Herbie's guys.
Yeah.
The only person on there that's Japanese is the singer Kimiko.
Yeah,
Kasai.
exactly.
And she's singing in English the whole time.
And she's singing in English, and she does Maiden Voyage, and I enjoyed her rendition of Maiden Voyage. It was great. So I had never heard Maiden Voyage with vocals before, and I really like the vocals.
Yeah. I think my favorite on that track is Head in the Clouds, because it's the most like it's the most similar to a lot of the like that Japanese city pop. It has that really like disco drive to it.
Yeah, and this is like a nice precursor to the city pop scene too, right?
Oh, I mean, it was going on during. I mean, this was done in '79, so I mean, by '79 it was in full swing. There was a I'm trying to remember her name. There's another vocalist really similar to Kimiko Kasai that has this. She has the song Tornado. I'm trying to remember her name, but if you like her, I'll send it to you. It's I some of these people's names I just can't remember, unfortunately. But
no, that's all right. my mind is just terrible with remembering different artists, especially Japanese artists.
Yeah, but and I was actually, I've never heard an original of this, but I think the mastering's really well done. It definitely is very, very good sounding. A lot of these recent, because this is this one is not a Japanese reissue. I think this is a
no. This is done by Be With, and
it's also done by Sony Japan.
Yeah.
So it's probably a joint release, but it wasn't. I don't think it was pressed in Japan.
No. This was pressed at Record Industry in the Netherlands. I might have a few ticks and pop, but I mean it was nothing to distract from the recording. I personally don't think Record Industry is the best plant in the world, but they do press reasonably well, and this sounded fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good album.
But yeah, Be With, they really specialize in kind of underground funk records, and yeah, this was great.
All right, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I didn't have to throw a recommendation your way that wasn't a waste.
So Michael, I got to say thank you for coming down to Houston. It was just fantastic doing record shopping with you, and you and I had been corresponding for 3 or 4 years now.
Probably at least 5 years now. Yeah.
And so it was great to finally meet one another.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun.
Yeah,
I appreciate you having me. So
hopefully next time it'll be in either Arizona or Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Roll on through.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Michael.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
All right.